Welcome to Fort Dunree on the spectacular eastern shore of Lough Swilly in County Donegal. Just beyond Dunree Head, Lough Swilly joins the powerful Atlantic Ocean, with Fort Dunree sitting as a diligent, watchful sentinel at the northwest corner of Europe. As one of only 3 glacial fjords in Ireland, Lough Swilly provides a safe harbour for ships crossing this vast ocean. It is this rugged location which has given Dunree its strategic importance for key events over time, ones which are explored further in our exhibition as we outline the unique history which has unfolded in this breathtaking location. By the late 1700s, Britain was at war with France and Spain. In 1798, the leader of the United Irishmen, Wolfe Tone, planned an uprising to liberate the Irish people from British rule. Having secured support from the French, a fleet of warships under Admiral Bompard prepared to land Tone nearby, but a naval battle with the British fleet saw their defeat. Tone was arrested and 7 French ships were seized. This was the second time the French fleet had penetrated so far north, and it prompted the British to immediately fortify Lough Swilly against the threat of Napoleonic invasion. The Defence Fortification Scheme of 1800 saw forts constructed along both banks of Lough Swilly, at Knockalla, McCamish and Rathmullen on the west bank, and Inch, Ned's Point and Dunree on the east bank. Fort Leman was not constructed until later in 1902. Under British control, Fort Dunree was constantly developed, even after the threat of Napoleonic invasion had subsided. Permanent buildings were constructed, the water supply was secure, and the armaments were repeatedly upgraded with newer and more effective artillery. During early World War I, the entire British Grand Fleet was temporarily stationed at Lough Swilly, while anti-submarine defences were constructed at Scapa Flow, their permanent base in the Shetland Islands of northern Scotland. During their stay in Lough Swilly, an anti-submarine boom was laid between Ned's Point and McCamish to prevent unauthorised access. While the fleet was stationed here, Admiral Lord Jellicoe reported that, for the first time since the declaration of war, the fleet occupied a secure base. The writer Dennis Ireland was stationed at Fort Dunree when the fleet left, and he described the sight of their departure as watching long lines of warships filing through the Narrows, each ship illuminated and turned by searchlight. What a magnificent sight it must have been. It was also during World War I that Lough Swilly became an assembly point for convoys crossing the Atlantic. This resulted in German submarines and minesweepers becoming much more active along the north coast of Ireland. During World War I alone, over 70 ships were sunk within 80 kilometres of Fort Dunree. 2 of the most famous of these would become the super dreadnought battleship HMS Audacious and the White Star liner RMS Laurentic. While World War I raged, here, the Easter Rising of 1916 was the beginning of Ireland's emergence as a republic. Following the end of World War I in 1918, the War of Independence in Ireland in 1919 ended with the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921 and established the Irish Free State and led to the creation of Northern Ireland. Although most state bodies were returned to Irish control, the 3 port facilities at Bearhaven, Cove and Lough Swilly were retained by the British. These became known as the Treaty Ports and were not to be returned to Irish control until the new Anglo-Irish Agreement of 1938, which was signed by British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and the Irish Taoiseach Eamon de Valera. Fort Dunree was the last treaty port to be handed back to the Irish state. Despite the fanfare and crowds which had gathered for the handover ceremony in Bearhaven, the ceremony at Fort Dunree was a small and quiet affair, but may be considered symbolic of the good set about military life in Fort Dunree, providing coastal defence until the outbreak of World War II in 1939. As Ireland remained neutral during World War II, this period was known as the emergency in Irish history. Fort Dunree was on high alert due to both the threat of invasion from Germany, but also from a potential retaking of the treaty ports by the British. Throughout World War II, the troops at Fort Dunree were tasked with recovering the bodies from the many planes that crashed in initial. Soon after the end of World War II, Fort Leanan was closed, and the guns at Dunree were placed in a state of long maintenance, supported by a small detachment of coast defence artillery personnel. Of several key figures in the defence forces, which led to the development of Fort Dunree Military Museum, which opened its doors in 1986. The lower fort, where we are now, hosts a variety of areas to explore. There's the museum building, the underground bunker, the workshop, the searchlight enclosure, and the peace garden. And of course, the two guns, which have been in position since the early 1900s. The wider site is surrounded by breathtaking scenery, which is best experienced along the 3 kilometres of walking trails. These trails take in the top fort, the practice battery, and the Laurentic Memorial, with each area providing excellent opportunities for wildlife watching when the weather is right, and the rugged, picturesque, spectacular scenery all year round. The Saldana Suite houses the Rock Hill collection of military memorabilia, a wildlife exhibition, and also makes a unique wedding venue. And when you need a little refreshment, the old forge is now home to the most scenic coffee shop along the whole of the Wild Atlantic Way. The management group have ensured that Fort Dunree remains integral to the local community. Their efforts support several community-based initiatives, including yoga classes, kayaking safaris, and exhibitions by local artists and art link. We hope that you enjoy your visit, exploring all that Fort Dunree has to offer, and take memories of this unique and historic place with you wherever you go.